They absolutely do. I think Mystic has seriously impressed a lot of us around the globe. 80% of you not so impressed by their performance so far, more leaning in favor of Chazmac. Thank you everyone for your predictions. And it seems like it's pretty in line with what we had in mind here at the caster desk, but we could focus on Mystic a little bit. I think that this is a strong duo. We had Killer and Luffy from the squad last year on Vanguard. Now combining forces with Zeus, it gives some good opportunities for Zeus especially to pop off. Having that duo out as a foundation. We saw Mystic especially do very well in the Queso Cup in December, and we also have seen them do pretty well in another third-party tournament, the Snapdragon Pro Series so far. They started off with a 2-0 record. Very strong roster, definitely a force to be reckoned with.
A lot of Brawl being played at a competitive level, and jumping into Crystal Arcade, our picks and bans are coming here. Colonel Ruffs going to be the first selection overall. I like this as the first pick. Toast is will be repping the squad. We'll see who plays it, but Colonel Ruffs doesn't really dictate a hardcore composition. Really can put a lot of characters with it, so I like that brawler to start off with. Ready? They're going to pick Otis across the way.
Definitely digging it. Of course, keep in mind, Otis is going to be receiving a nerf pretty soon, so this might be the last time that we see him so frequently in the competitive scene. I think maybe the same goes for Colonel Ruffs, as we'll see indestructible walls bringing into the game as well. But I think really Colonel Ruffs here is going to be breaking open those left and right lanes if it needs to help out some teammates, especially those two blocks in the center, sort of near the gems where they spawn, so that you can prevent more value for a brawler like Gene, which is selected on the side of Mystic Esports. Stu also going to be selected, just a good all-around brawler for Chazmac to use here. I think they're also very aware of what Mystic have here. They had that last pick. They can completely dominate a lane with a tank if they know how to use it, and Fade on that Stu is going to be able to counter out any tank fairly well.
Last choice here for Chazmac Gaming. And then Zeus and Killer will have to will have to find a last choice as well. B rounds it out. That kind of threatens a big tank option here on this side. Where do you think Mystic goes?
They've got to be doing something to deal with the B here, because the brawlers that they have so far are not really able to contend with it. We don't see the max ban. They might be able to make it work with that. Some people love playing max into the B. Other people absolutely hate it because you have the speed and you can use that to counteract the slow that B has to offer sometimes. Get those fancy footwork moves out and dodge her out to the best of your ability, but they're going to have to keep in mind a few things. Here's a Carl selection, and as far as brawlers to run into B, it's not my absolute favorite, but if Mystic Esports are able to deny the wall break from Colonel Ruffs, they'll still be able to fare pretty well here, I think.
Yeah, Carl is one of those brawlers where I think, like you said, I mean, it's probably not number one on my list to go into B, but I'm certainly not upset. And look at the composition. Obviously, a Gene composition is centered around Gene. So that's the idea for sure. Mid control, I think Chazmac kind of has the better composition there with respect to just straight up mid control, but it'll be Mystic's job to really make players fight for sure. But gems in the middle being picked up. Juan Carlos, the first one to go ahead and grab. So Chazmac on the board first and foremost, but honestly, Mystic are able to really control this mid as Juan Carlos and Fade are on the right side.
Seems so. It's going to be difficult for Chazmac Gaming to make it over to Mystic's side. They don't have a ton of mobility on their team with the exception of Toast, and he's going to have to win that left lane first. So far, so good for Mystic Esports, but still, they're at a huge range deficit, and they don't have a pull yet. Even if they do get a pull, they're going to have difficulty getting Juan Carlos, as he does have a totem he can throw down. Fade on the right side, though, is doing a phenomenal job. Even is able to break open some of these walls, and that's going to be great for Juan Carlos. It's not where Killer's been lurking so far, but it'll afford a lot more territory for Juan Carlos. Killer, he's also forced to move over to the left side, where he has more cover. Juan Carlos still trying his best to keep things at bay. Luffy with a good lane victory on the left side. Now closes in from the top. Super down, no value there. Chazmac Gaming and A forced to back up Juan Carlos, the last man standing. And Zeus, he gets to walk all over the right side.
Very important for Killer, coming through and confirming that kill after the fact. Stu gets smoked out as well. Big pull from Gene. And so it's 7-5, Mystic Esports in the lead and continuing as the mid, well, once belonged to them, but with the right lane win on Chazmac's side. Just like that, Ready, they're able to kind of take control, take the reins of this matchup. They're down 2 gems, but that's going to be fixed relatively soon.
Could be short-lived. Here comes Luffy, big gadget in, and he's able to clear out that right side. Now circling around behind Killer, who would like that last gem, but he can just back up. Toast also silence taken down. Fade on the right side, doing his best to move forward, but unfortunately not able to get in range. Just 5 seconds left, and there's no hope for Mystic Esports to be taken down here. As long as you have a 3v2, it's a winning matchup.
They also kind of nailed the fundamentals here as well. Gem carrier, dedicated gem carrier, and then there was a moment where ChazMac looked like they might have been able to kind of step forward, and Zeus, the player with no gems, you saw one of the other guys kind of step forward and, nail your fundamentals. Keep your gem carrier out of harm's way. So mid-control this time around was in the hands of ChazMac, but just like that, big damage coming out of Mystic Esports, and just on top of it, Fade falls down as well. So last one was a little close to the end. Mystic this time, really, really strong entrance.
We have to hand it to Luffy especially. He's able to do very, very well against Fade. Even Toast, he's able to shrug off pretty successfully. On the right lane, he's able to slice right through some of those sandbags if Fade decides to shoot him down. But Fade and Juan Carlos combined forces to eliminate him. Now Killer's forced way, way back. But once again, Mystic Esports, they have a lot more mobility than ChazMac Gaming NA. Toast can dash in, but it's going to be very, very tough for him to survive if he gets a little too aggressive and gets stranded. Here comes the breakthrough. Good dodges. Luffy also fired down upon with all of this wall break. It's a winning game for ChazMac Gaming NA. Toast with no wind at his back, able to move backwards, and ChazMac Gaming NA just got to run it back and keep things slowed down at mid.
Unfortunate. Here comes Luffy on the left-hand side. Stu gets the kill. That was the moment. Two players pushing up mid as well.
Really the greatest threat on the field for them, which happened to be Carl. And on paper, Carl is still able to deal fairly well with Stu, but Stu should counter him out as long as Stu is getting those supers consistently lined up, getting the dodges. Juan Carlos, you also see doubling up on that left side, pretty much completely ignoring Killer, as Luffy is public enemy #1 at the moment, but it does leave open the right lane. Fade taken down. And ChazMac Gaming NA, they're losing a lot of territory here.
Well, this is exactly, ChazMac is doing exactly what you need to do, right? You need to identify the problem. But then Mystic, on the other hand, sure, Luffy's kind of the star player right now, so he's drawn the ire of the enemy team. So now it's Zeus and Killer's job to fill that void because everybody's paying attention to Luffy. That said, the Carl, this player has been nasty, getting a lot of these lane wins and keeping Toast, honestly, like, they're doing their own thing on this left side, but that means Toast is not involved on the right.
Absolutely does. It's going to be difficult for him to switch over to the right side as well. He's very occupied on the left, but Juan Carlos and Fade now get to pinch in thanks to a lane victory on the right. Luffy, Killer, forced back, but they're still going to stay in this position. It gives him a bit more time, especially for Zeus to start moving up on the right. Take out the Honey Molasses, now move forward on the right. Fade and Juan Carlos ready to contest, but he has the silence at the ready. Jim also lurking on the side of ChazMac Gaming NA. They're not too hasty to move up on it, as they don't want to get surprised by Killer. Great dashes back and forth by Toast on the left side, just trying to buy some time, dashing away from Luffy and escaping with his life as well. Brilliant plays for Toast. That's how you play the Stu counter. Amazing stuff. ChazMac Gaming NA, despite the countdown reset, they got 10 gems on Juan Carlos. It's a safe situation.
Exactly. Kill goes on to Toast, so one defender down, but Killer's real low, so I'm looking at Zeus, who's also real low. Nice shots coming out of Toast. And just like that, good team.
Taking things down, analyzing them, and Juan Carlos doubling up on the lane along with the Stu. I think just great stuff, great team play. We'll see if it comes into play here on Pit Stop too.
Should be interesting for sure. Heist is where we're going, and we'll be in a hot zone next. And that might be where it ends if ChazMac has their way. First pick, Spike. Not going to complain about that. I really like the way that Spike is able to both control the battlefield and also make some noise.
Pretty much. I mean, one of my favorite things as Spike to see is if you can sit right under the safe, you can hit about 6,000 damage at a time.
All right. My joke's not going to work out here. But Daryl, classic. First of all, you're going to be able to break the wall that you need to do so, and then you want to talk about damage onto the safe. That's what the shotgun characters just do. They get up close, and they just rumble. So I actually really Love the Daryl selection here. And second for Zeus, more wall break. Excellent stuff. No complaints here.
I think Daryl in particular is a very scary brawler when you're facing Mystic Esports. They've made this Daryl work on so many different maps. They even make it work in Knockout as well. Daryl also serves to counter a good number of brawlers, especially tanks too. Just manages to come out on top in the matchup. ChazMat Gaming in A though, they're not biting just yet. Keep in mind they have gotten the first pick for the second time in a row. They'll have to face that counter pick from Mystic Esports, but with the dog pick, they're going to be countering out the Surge in a fairly good way. They have one more selection to go with. Griff is their choice. He's not as strong as he used to be, but he can break open walls and he can get some serious safe damage. It's just not going to be as mobile as a team composition as Mystic Esports have.
Yeah, I look at the Griff and what I mean, like, I look at the Griff mainly as the wall break. You know, everything else is just sort of like, he is a brawler, but being selected here mainly for the wall break, correct?
Yeah, I think that, and also you're able to do very, very good damage versus tanks, fire them down. Here's a Penny as well, kind of fulfills a similar role once she has the Salty Barrel down. Interesting pick for Mystic Esports though. I mean, she is a great brawler all around, but when you're facing so much wall break like Colonel Ruffs and also Griff, you're not going to have too many places to place your turret down.
Definitely something to keep in mind. You likely will see that turret kind of up in that corner playing defensively, I think, near the gray walls. I think that'll be where she seeks to kind of put it, because these opening spots, like you said, if I'm on the other side, Mystic Esports coming out of the bottom side of your spectator UI, if I'm ChazMat up top, the first thing I'm doing is getting rid of these green pieces in the middle. But it's the left lane from Mystic that's able to push up just a little bit. Killer's going to go ahead and heal up. But a Griff Super takes down Luffy, so it's one man by himself.
And now eliminated two. Mystic Esports all respawning right in front of the safe, and ChazMat Gaming, they're trying to play this surgically. Defense around the left side, try and block in that choke point. The Killer and Luffy, they're still able to move through, but without any cover, Luffy's going to struggle so hard. And there's a good possibility that he doesn't even get a level up for the entire game. Here comes another wall break from Fade around that left side. And Juan Carlos doing the exact same with the piggy bank. Luffy on very low health, and you see he's even trying to get the level up, popping that gadget to get to the second level and close in, but it's going to expire before he can really get close to Toast. Good lane victories on the right side, though, as Fade's taken down. Killer now has his sight set firmly on that safe. It's up to Fade to defend, but Killer has such a beefy shield. Juan Carlos is able to help, but Zeus now has that turret at the ready. There's Toast! There are the 6K shots we were talking about, and Mystic Esports, their safe is just melting right now.
Big damage coming out from ChazMat because they've taken 52%. Mystic Esports gets involved a little bit later, but they have less than half of that at 19. So, Killer on the right side dealing with the 2-on-1 and not dealing with it well, unfortunately. Luffy and Zeus should have been able to make something happen, but Juan Carlos's presence on this left side, even though his teammates were engaged in the 2v1, Juan Carlos was able to stop that push up mid. So ultimately, CMG still at 81% while they're finding more and more damage, 29% and counting.
Daryl connects on the enemy safe. We see some damage trickling in on ChazMat's side, but Mystic Esports continue to get punished, especially by Juan Carlos. Now closing in from the right side, Killer could fall. Here comes a shot from Toast, but the dodges are just on point for Killer. He's trying to reset on the left side. Luffy now with that level 3 good upgrades in a unwinnable looking situation. He's still going to try and make it work. They have a long way to go and a short time to get there. 10 seconds left. Killer defended on the left side. Luffy's got to make it work. Big damage in. Zeus trying to do the same. Juan Carlos keeping them at bay. Zeus more damage in. 23-19. That's the final score.
Game, whereas Mystic found their moments. They came in, they did 20%. They came in, they did 20%. As opposed to that slow trickle, ChazMat just consistently finding themselves on enemy side. Luffy makes it behind the defense and is just now getting some damage here much earlier than Mystic was involved in game number 1. So already a nicer look for Mystic getting involved earlier.
Very much so. They're still not going to really be able to deny this wall break in the early game. Toasty's already gotten a level up as well, and that means bad business for Killer. But Zeus is going to go for some area control with his turret placed on the left side. Juan Carlos and Fade sort of have to move away and react. They also have to defend versus Killer and keep Luffy at bay. A lot of responsibilities for Chazmat Gaming in A, since they don't have a tank that can easily move on to the enemy safe. They have to play defense before they can effectively move in. And this time, Mystic is sort of overwhelming them, especially on the right side. Zeus moving in with the turret, Luffy getting good dodges, trying to ambush Juan Carlos from the left side. Here it comes, one shot, two shot. The third is going to confirm him as super, and now he has that super, level 2 incoming. But Chazmat Gaming in A continue to overwhelm Mystic's defense, and Luffy has to about face.
And this is something this is the hard decision to make. Do you just stick to it and let your teammates play defense? Because if that was the case, if Luffy did not assist, he's getting so much damage on the safe. But I think ultimately it was the right choice. Do you agree?
I think so too. I mean, really, this is a complicated thing about heists, is it's tough to tell when exactly you can abandon that safe. There are a few brawlers that you absolutely don't want to let on there. Killer's one of them, and Toast is one of them too. You got a couple of huge damage dealers on either side. Mystic and Chazmak have to frame when and where they defend around them.
67% left for Mystic, 44 on Chazmak's side, so Mystic with the lead this time around. Of course, they lost game number 1, as close as it was. Fade falls down to the right side, so Chazmak won't be threatening Mystic just yet. Juan Carlos can't get in there either, goes home the hard way. And we see Daryl up top, supers on in, finds the kill across the way as well. Killer and Luffy both get some shots in. Chazmak Gaming gonna watch their safe fall down. Mystic Esports with one.
And Chazmak were able to deal with it fairly well in game number 1. They were able to take defensive positions and then sort of overwhelm Mystic in certain situations. But Mystic, they've downloaded their opponent. They know exactly what's going on now. And look at this left lane. Luffy and Killer just power through. Luffy, he's able to get a very early game super as well, already upgrading to level 2. And Killer's got great jukes on lock immediately on the safe as well. It's a rockstar performance from Mystic in the early game.
Again, game number 1 was just the outlier here. Game 2 and 3, Mystic have been very active very early, not only were they the first on the safe, but they continue to do so. That said, Chazmak busting open this wall at this point is very, very good, and not something that I really saw them do earlier on. So if they want to find themselves with the dub again here, that's gonna be a great feature for them.
See if Fade's able to help with this too, because he's the one who can consistently get the wall break up and running. Luffy's still going to be able to benefit from the lack of walls now that he has that third level ready to go, especially once he respawns. Killer on the right side also trying not to feed another super to Fade. 30% damage and health is just a huge asset to have with supply drop onto a team. And here comes Killer, though, blocked up by those sandbags. He's still able to confirm the kill. Great stuff. And Zeus on the left side, still trying to fire it down, but Toast is doing a great job of defending. Juan Carlos, he's bum rushing for the safe, trying to stay away from Luffy, but he's getting caught up to. Luffy still keeping his distance. Looks like they're assessing whether they can fully commit on the enemy safe or not. Chazmat Gaming in A, taking major damage, have to get rid of Killer, and they finally are, but only 14% left. It's not a good outlook.
Not at all. Now, I mean, that said, we've seen comebacks like this. Chazmak can lock up this mid. When I look at it, you know, you've got some strong areas in Isle and not really that many throwers, but Luffy jumps over. Good attention by Chazmak to take him down, but I think it's too little too late. 4, 3, 2, 1. But no zero. No zero. Oh, man. No way, right?
I would have to say there's no shot. 20 seconds left, and you got Killer. He's auto-charging that super already. Luffy closing in from the left side, trying to juke out Toast. Toast just trying, defending his heart out, but it's not quite enough. Mystic Esports for the second set in a row. Yes, they take one game, but this time they take 2. They tied the match score 1-1. I gotta say, formidable effort from Chazmat Gaming in A, but from the side of Mystic, this was just the Daryl diff. We saw commendable efforts from Chazmak to pick brawlers that were able to deal consistently with the Daryl, and it wasn't quite enough. In Heist, you respawn really fast, you got great mobility to make it to the other side. We saw Chazmak spend most of their time on defense, and that was really the main thing that hurt them.
I agree. Definitely had to be afraid of the Daryl. I like the pick with it. As soon as they locked it in, I was excited. You know, and the thing is that you can't really even knock what Chaznak brought to the table. At the end of the day, I think they just lost this one on the field. Great performance, specifically from Killer, obviously. But Luffy was very involved as well. I really like this Surge pick. Just immediately we think about jumping over the wall. And he did that, yeah, sure. But realistically, Luffy just brawled out, just really piloted this brawler extremely well and won a lot of the fights. And that's exactly what the team needed.
Pretty much. I think also his team was such a big benefit in that one. Check out the kills as well. You could see just how much Chazmak Gaming spent on defense. So much damage, so many kills, and some good stuff from Mystic too, but they ended up getting more damage on the save. And hey, that's the objective in this mode. If we talk Luffy in particular on that Surge though, it, from my perspective, looked like a pretty unwinnable matchup. He's playing Surge, there are no tanks on the enemy team, and he's outranged, he's outlaned by every single one of those enemy brawlers. But Mystic Esports, they were able to flank him well, and they were able to predict some of the lane matchups fairly well to get him away from Colonel Ruff's, his central counter on Chazmak's side, and get him in position to get that super early on. We saw it in game 2 and 3. He got those supers lightning fast. Is exactly what you want as a Surge player.
Well, great look there. So now we're tied up, one for Mystic and one for Chazmak. And so we're guaranteed at least 4 sets. Brawl Ball will come next, but first, we're gonna make our way through Dueling Beetles, the hot zone. That's a good friend. That's a top 5 friend for sure. Not as good as Buzz, poolside, but I'm here for the spooky ghost.
I'm here for the spooky ghost too. I mean, I hope we get to see the snake reappear once again in those map previews as well. We love having friends on the broadcast as well. I think maybe, just maybe, we'll get to see Gus chasing a balloon in the background too. Here we go though. Chazmak Gaming in a first selection here, and mind the bans as well. See, Chazmak, they have that first pick, and they've gotten rid of 2 really good throwers on this map, especially Sprout, such a frustrating brawler to face. We see also Chazmak with that B pick, and one of the main things is that B, she's able to win a lot of lanes here. The other deal is she's able to counter out some pretty central brawlers on this map. She's able to do very well versus Poco, which has been banned out for Mystic, so it's not going to offer as much value for Chazmak just in the pick phase, but it's still a brawler that they love to play. Whether it's Toast, nowadays seems to be more of Juan Carlos, and also versus a Griff. I think that'll break open some walls, and it's important for Mystic Esports to snap this one up so that Chazmak don't have it on their side.
Second option here. And yeah, this is, I'm always a fan of Sprout because Sprout is such a unique character, but specifically with these tight corridors, that's really where you kind of got to get rid of a little post-it face. So Luffy comes through, and it's going to be the Janet selection, and pretty much for the same reasons that I highlighted why Sprout can be frustrating to play against. Well, Janet ignores a lot of that stuff by taking to the sky. So I really like her selection here. And in general, whenever you're trying to play Hot Zone, Janet is sort of an we think of area denial differently, but Janet being able to kind of like dive bomb the location and then get back to safety, I think is a really sort of important asterisk when you're selecting her in this game mode.
It's one of my favorite things too. Let's also keep in mind she has dropped the base. She has that gadget that basically gets you free control as long as it's not taken. Here's Penny. Love the selection. Kind of had a feeling it was going to appear at some point because she's so strong on this map, and she's just a strong brawler on about any map in general. Though if the map gets broken up quite a bit, there are possibilities that I could just ignore the turret. I can just walk away from it. But if you have B awaiting you on the other side, B's going to be able to line up those shots a lot more effectively. If you're running away from where that cannonball is going to land, B can pretty easily predict where you're going to move and get those shots lined up to Fade. Also coming in with Stu, just a great selection all around. I think also going to offer some wall break. You do have the option of going for Speed Zone instead, but I definitely see Chazmak Gaming in A leaning in a wall break direction because they have B on their side. Mystic, now with a selection of Gus, just another long-range brawler that's going to be a great asset, and it'll also be one that can give that shield to Luffy, or I think especially Killer, so that he can go super aggro, get some damage bonus, and survive along with it.
Absolutely. Gus has quickly become one of my favorite brawlers since his addition last year. Just the the double-sided blade, essentially. Long-range sharpshooter, but also that shield is so important, especially like you said, Hot Zone, your job is to get into harm's way, essentially. So we'll see how it all crumbles. Mystic Esports leading, as Zeus is the one stepping on the point. But when Toast gets involved, it can all go awry. Toast on this stew is honestly just such a pleasure to watch. He just glides around and does his thing really, really well. And I mentioned it before, Daryl, but Stu is kind of the embodiment of just hit your stuff and don't get hit.
Pretty much, and I'm sure that's something every pro player loves to hear is, don't get hit. It's just that simple. Why are you getting hit, dude? You would win if you didn't get hit. And Toast, unfortunately, does get a bit tapped up there on the backside. Zeus coming in with another gadget, but it does get taken down. He only has one more left, so he's going to have to use it effectively. But really surprising start from Mystic Esports. Very strong lead here already with a 50% lead. But ChazMat Gaming NA trying to pick up pieces. Once they get control for the first time, they absolutely can keep it, but Mystic are trying to 100% them here. Only a 50% going the way of ChazMat.
Big damage out of Griff to win on that right-hand side. And for the first time, ChazMat getting involved here. Zeus falls down, but, you know, it's the big damage from Mystic, and this was a quick one, man. ChazMat could not...
We saw Janet take to the skies specifically to get rid of the penny turret, and Zeus just kind of rammed himself against that pillar on the left side, just headbutting, you know, column 9 3/4 until that turret was taken down, and then he just flew right back away. I haven't seen Janet play like that before, and maybe y'all have, but it was a nice surprise. This time though, ChazMat, they do start off with a good start, and that's a great change to see.
Yeah, I think this was very important. So what I was going to jump into was just that ChazMat, they really need a specific kind of entry point. And then once they're here, yeah, okay, we can kind of put out the honey molasses, we can drop the safe turret and make use of it. But actually getting there first, it could be trouble to kind of kick this door down. So it was very important for ChazMat to get involved early and establish themselves at the point and make Mystic look for the retake. And because of that, we're seeing almost the flip side of what we saw last time around. Juan Carlos is going to be chased down by Zeus, but he dodges all the shots. He's able to get out of jail. However, the rest of Juan's teammates fall down, and Mystic are involved for the first time.
This is great look for both teams, in fact, but ChazMat Gaming, they have the upper hand. I think really the biggest differential game over game is ChazMat Gaming NA, particularly Toast, being more apt to go aggressive off of the early game. Mystic Esports are suffering as a result. They're still able to get a retake here. They got a lot of room to walk around and a lot of room to dodge, but with so many turrets popped up by ChazMat Gaming NA, I mean, look at this. We saw 3 turrets up at once. So much damage being blocked, but really the more important thing
was the fact that ChazMat demanded Mystic try to find the retake, and because largely the speed turret just able to dodge well. So Zeus, Luffy, Killer couldn't find that moment. The Griff Super is going to be a big part of their retake, in my opinion. That's how Mystic want to kind of open the door. And Mystic have a couple of more options, in my opinion, than ChazMat does, but Mystic couldn't find the answer, basically because ChazMat were just out brawling. Great stuff coming out from Toast for sure, but I've been looking at Fade. I've really enjoyed Fade's work here.
Fade is doing a great job of dodging the damage and also staying at range, just outranging some of his opponents as well, even though on paper he doesn't have as long of range as Gus, for instance. I think another thing that ChazMat are doing really well is identifying particular targets that they want to focus down. Fade and Juan Carlos have been pretty apt to buddy up on the right lane. We saw them focus down Killer and then immediately go for Luffy. Mystic Esports, they've made an adaptation, now moving around the left side with Luffy instead of having to target around the right. Toast just going back and forth, zigzagging, but he still doesn't get the takedown. Zeus and Luffy have zoned him out. Juan Carlos falls, and this could be a retake for Mystic Esports.
Well, Zeus is looking for the Toast kill, not able to find it. ChazMat 3/4 of the way done. Mystic climbing now, though, it's ChazMat on the back foot. Killer and Luffy on the point, taking care of business on the left-hand side. 75% is that mark to match, and Mystic Esports are almost there as they're crossing the 45% mark. But a big play by ChazMat. Killer, they're spread. Both of them go down north and south. That might be it. I don't know if Zeus can hang on to this.
He doesn't have a turret. It looks like it's a done deal. Chazmat Gaming in A. We see Toast once more gliding back to Brawl Ball in particular, but with every single map on Brawl Ball, it seems like the geography influences a totally different style of play. We can name drop a few sneaky fields. We love to see some of those tanks. It comes down to triple dribble, and we see some really wacky stuff too. And then pinhole punt. Now we have that ring of bushes at mid, like you pointed out, but you also have lanes on the left and right that can be favorable towards some shorter range options as well. It'll come down to the bans, of course, to influence how this map is played, but some of the more popular brawlers here, I absolutely have to mention Crow. Crow's simply great for scouting out the bushes. Crow's a great brawler in general, high mobility, great utility, and sometimes when you're fighting him, it can feel like you're fighting in futility. I'm just looking for a word to rhyme, but yeah, we'll just sweep that one under the rug and try and forget about it.
We'll get there. We'll get there for sure. Something actually I think is interesting when it comes to pinhole punt, cleave-oriented characters. But brawlers here, bans are out. No Poco, no Max, no Otis, and a couple of the tanks and Gray. So largely predictable bans, I would say, considering the map and the meta. First choice, what do you think they go with?
Well, I mean, B, I suppose, from the side of Chazmat Gaming has been one of their selections for every single set where they could snap it up, and I think that's a solid choice for Chazmat, especially because they're not going to be facing the Max, so they don't have to worry about getting overwhelmed in close range. Mystic Esports now have to think really cautiously about what they're going to play into this. A long-range option would be very valuable, but they've proven already that they don't really have to have it. We saw in Hot Zone, they were still able to take a W facing B without a super long-range option. Of course, there was Gus, but as far as contending with B, not really one of the strongest. Here comes Janet, though, and I think that's a solid selection for Mystic Esports. Chazmat Gaming in A. I also want to take note of some of the bans here, and I think that also reveals a lot about what these teams know about each other. Chazmat Gaming in A getting rid of the cheese brawler, the Gray, and the tanks. Mystic Esports getting rid of the more consistent brawlers as well, but also ones that Chazmat are pretty known for playing.
Yeah, well said. I love to see the teams do their homework. Very important when it comes down to particularly this side of the game, the brain side of the game. As the gene selection here, very rarely am I going to argue with a gene. But so we've got two more selections. The option goes over to Chazmat Gaming. The B is locked in there. Do we want more area denial to pile on with the honey molasses, or are we looking for elsewhere?
It could really just be a matter of preference here for Chazmat Gaming in A. I wouldn't be shocked if they more so go brawlers that they're comfortable with, but I think B by herself provides enough area denial, especially given how open the geography of this map is. They need some options that are solid on those lanes, because one of the ways that we've seen these teams consistently take the victories is by winning those lanes. I can very much see Fade picking up the dog here. Colonel Ruffs maybe coming in for that last pick. Can break open the walls. Also, the bags would be good for dealing with Killer. Just still risk when you're facing Zeus because of the piercing damage that Janet has to offer.
For sure, definitely something to keep in mind. And there's the M's, and I really like this composition for sure, because I agree with you. I think what Toast brings, or what B brings, is kind of largely enough area denial, and M's is kind of half and half. So you have like 1.5, if you will, in that category. You got Crow to just beat people up, and Fade is going to be that utility sort of facilitator, allowing B and Crow to kind of do all of, the heavy lifting for sure. So I really like this composition here from Chazmat Gaming. And I'm also eager, there it is, the spike on the side of Mystic. There's a lot of threat with Janet and the Gene, and so I think this spike selection kind of rounds out what Mystic wants to do, similarly to the way CMG has it.
Same here. I mean, 6 out of 7 days of the week, I would not be the biggest fan of Spike, but I guess it is that one day. It's Sunday here, and I think that Spike would be a fairly solid pick here, because if we look at what Chazmat has gone for, they do have the B, sure, but the other brawlers they have aren't really the greatest for peeking around walls, and Spike really thrives in these situations. You gotta acknowledge, though, at this level of play, brawlers are consistently able to dodge out the curveball, so if Chazmat Gaming in A are playing the skill game here, they totally can, but lots of of control around the left side. Luffy's thrown down that turret, and seems like ChazMac are helpless to stop it. A little bit of slowing action, but it's short-lived. Another fresh turret pops down. Juan Carlos fumbles the ball and gets taken down. He didn't pass it over to the right side, and Mystic Esports take a goal. That was not intentional by ChazMac.
Not at all. That said, I think that even if we see non-fumble of the ball there from ChazMac defense, I think Mystic still scores there. Zeus did a great job of just slowly ticking down. You're right. It's easy to dodge the curveball at this level of play, but you do get around those corners, and so that's really where Zeus is kind of earning his money as the team wipe happens, but the respawns should come, and so no big goal opportunity, despite the winning team fight, essentially, from Mystic.
Wow, Mystic Esports, they're blowing me away right now, especially Killer here, hitting that pole. ChazMac, they could have opted to block it with the gadget if they had any left. You see Juan Carlos, he's fresh out of those honey molasses. He can't block poles anymore. Killer, he can just continuously bully him and combo with Luffy. Fate's trying to slow them down. Could be a super right up to Zeus. Alley-oop. We need to see it go in. There it is. Quickly, especially with Janet, they are rushing down whatever side she's on, and they're winning that mid matchup consistently. How on earth do ChazMac respond?
Well, for Mystic also, there's a lot of sort of fundamental play that's working out. They're not staggering deaths on the enemy team. As soon as they get one, watch. Here comes the rest of them. They push forward. That's intentional. You stagger deaths, all of a sudden there's always a defender. But if you kind of wipe everybody out, that allows you to step forward. No goal this time around, but just wasn't a perfect opportunity. But you see that I like the way that they are kind of very particular about their targets.
Well, Mystic
right side, we've got the Spike Super. Sure. Absolutely. So now they've got one more push ready.
Yeah, we'll see if they're able to finish it off here. They don't want to use their gadgets too quickly because they have committed pretty hard already. Here comes a super in. Goal's basically cleared out. Juan Carlos has a killer B, but he's taking lots of damage along the way. Luffy senses blood in the water. Here he comes. Fade also trying to defend Toast, the final one in front of the goal. Luffy ready for a pass, but it gets passed around the right side. Juan Carlos, though, helpless to defend it. Mystic Esports slot in the first goal of the game.
Man, again, my favorite thing, and I don't care what game it is, could be the NBA. I love seeing that communication on the field. And you saw that communication on that right lane, man. Like, that pass was called for. So cool from Mystic Esports. Left side, pass upfield, Luffy gonna have it, but the respawns are good. Fade jumps on in and forces Luffy to the sky. Will take down Juan Carlos, and also Toast.
Oh, no.
Pass upfield, goal is good.
Dude, Luffy must have like a Brawl Pass quest or something, because the end of the season is near, and 14 kills right there. I mean, that's a good chunk of your progress done. Beautiful stuff. I mean, completely unexpected there from Mystic Esports. We came in expecting greatness. Did we come in expecting a complete roll in that set? I can say certainly for myself, I did not. And I expect a much fairer matchup here as we head into the final map. Set number 5 coming right at you. It's Bell's Rock, first selection of Gene from ChazMac Gaming in A. Pretty solid selection. Keep in mind what Mystic Esports have banned out here. They've gotten rid of pretty much the 3 best throwers on this map, but they also have last pick. So this is suspicious.
All right. The question, so sharpshooters, there's a lot of geometry on this map, as Gray is not banned out, so we'll see him for the first time today. I mean, this is one of the last times we're going to be able to kind of be so cheesy, right? The teleport should be a lot of fun here, but again, this is knockout, so that teleport is not nearly as strong as some of the other objective-based modes for sure. But at the end of the day, Gray still hits hard, so does B. And so 2 long-range characters here selected for Mystic Esports.
Like the nanny pick from ChazMac Gaming in A, they know that this is going to be a open and long-range matchup, but Mystic, of course, can opt not to play it that way. Here's the deal. Mystic, they have a couple of Gray gadgets that they can play. One breaks walls, and the other, well, it breaks walls, but only if you hit someone on the other side. So they have great synergy with B, but they can opt to just play a standard lane game if they want to make sure that Nanny does not get much value here. Here's the Otis from ChazMac Gaming in A. They're not contributing any more wall break here. They still have the Gene, and they'll be able to chip things down, get that super fired up over time. Mystic Esports, they have a huge asset here. This is a great tool for them. Last pick, Throwers fanned out. Clearly, they are thinking of something. Just don't know what it is yet. It's only a matter of time before we find out, but it's got to complement these two brawlers they've selected already.
Coming down to the wire here. And Mystic locking in the Janet. Janet on Knockout is... Here's the thing, man. Janet on Knockout is not always my favorite pick, but how can you argue with a character that's literally invincible sometimes? So, Luffy going to be riding that and maybe flying their way to victory. The question that I wanted to ask is Mandy. With that long-range super, we've seen some work on Knockout. That's where I kind of thought they might have went, but I think Janet does something adjacent, right? You can hit players without putting yourself in harm's way, and that's kind of the idea.
Yeah, and also, Mandy, she can feel kind of gimmicky at times because she has that long range, but, I mean, look at this map. You have maybe a few straightaways that you can fire down, and really the longest range you're going to have at your disposal is if you're sitting in that bush, and you don't want to be in that bush. That is jail for literally anyone who finds themselves sitting in there. So for ChazMac, I mean, I think that they've played this fairly well and fairly safe in terms of the draft, but Mystic Esports, they've consistently kind of abused how strong this Janet gadget is. She's able to throw down, drop the base, and look at this. Juan Carlos, he pretty much can't do anything. He's just got to sit back and take it. Killer takes him down on the left side. There was nothing that Juan Carlos could do. It was a solved game as soon as Killer had him back there and had a gadget at the ready.
That's actually a big deal. I focus a lot on Janet's super. She gets pulled and just bullied. Good play there, and we have a team two. Both teams very healthy, but Luffy a little bit low, and Toast an inch away from death. Good shots coming out from Fade, but somebody needs to put a dot on that. Fade actually falls down, and it's Toast, the last man standing. Good trades. And ChazMac Gaming picks up round number 1.
Very, very close call. I really think that Mystic Esports, they absolutely had that one, but Killer must have thought he was out of range of the Gene Super. He was completely idle. Hopefully he was still in the game, and even if he was, not the greatest play. They can still bring it back, though. Big pull, Fade, and Juan Carlos combine on the right side. Zeus is down. Luffy feeling momentum. Can be a one-man army, but it's going to be a tough fight. He has his teleporter that he can use to reposition and heal 1,000 health. Big slows, Juan Carlos reflecting some of that damage. Luffy chipped down. Good kill from Luffy as Juan Carlos falls. Luffy, once again, the one-man army. It's almost impossible, but it's just that one shred of possibility that keeps him going.
Yeah, it's coming in now, so Luffy's options are going to be a little bit limited. Trying to get up to the teleported commentator booth and say, you should have avoided that. But I feel like both rounds, the gene pool was successful where players were kind of in a haphazard location. Like the Janet went in and just sort of landed in front of Gene. I, don't think that is a winning strategy. As the base is dropped, Fade needs to leave, and he's going to go out the hard way as Zeus finds the capitalization.
Let's see how Mystic Esports are able to react. They do have a huge advantage, a 3v2, but we saw what happened last time. This time, no Gene pulls in play. They're certainly not taking any risks at this point. Zeus, he has another gadget at his disposal if he wants to break down walls. Juan Carlos is able to get his super off of that interaction. ChazMac Gaming in A, they're not in a winning position. They're in a losing position, in fact. Once that poison closes in, they might opt to just run in there and avoid feeding any more supers, especially to Zeus. Juan Carlos doing exactly that, going down in the poison. Killer has his super, and Luffy just might have a super, but we know that the Gray does not have that teleport. Here comes the main super, making its way over to Killer, maybe to Luffy. Big damage, but no one there to finish it off. Had that cooked for just a little bit longer, and he would have gotten the one-shot. Point is, let him cook on that ninny. Let that autofocus cook. And now Juan Carlos is going to have to pay the price. Almost going down, final bomb being dropped. There's the kill. Killer also almost able to take down Toast in close range. This is a 2v2 now.
Would have liked to see Zeus a little bit more north, but ultimately doesn't matter because the second kill goes down. Fade alive, the 1v2 unlikely. And so pop location wins games. That is how you win the tournament.
It's all about that team communication 100% of the time, especially for both of these teams that crucial moments we've seen them identify one single enemy, the public enemy number one, if you will, to take down. And so far, we've seen Zeus break down some of these walls, but not make them super open, just make them more optimal to hide behind. I love that. You almost never see that on this map. So far, so good for them. They have way, way better positioning than ChazMax so far, but it'll come down to who gets the first supers to start redirecting the pace of the game. Keep in mind, it's match point, and it all comes down to just 3 rounds of knockout.
My ideal match ender, by the way. Knockout is so... you get white knuckled as Mystic Esports makes their push forward, dropping Gadget, taking care of business on the right lane. Toast and Fade alive. The 3v2, not as unlikely as the 2v1 in my opinion. Toast walking forward, though, by himself. Fade couldn't help. And just like that, Luffy and Killer combine for the kill and the denial of the supercharge up. So Mystic Esports 1 round away from taking this. Okay.
I'm here for it. It would be a bit of an upset, too. 80% going with ChazMax Gaming NA. All condensed into just 2 rounds now with the vast lead of Mystic Esports. They have 2 supers on their side, one a teleport, one a slow. Of course, more significant than the other. Zeus can get a teleport in. Fade, he's ready for the lamp blowout if anyone gets too aggressive. ChazMax, they're focusing on charging up these supers, playing it safe from there. Luffy's also got that killer B. And he could pretty much sit here for as long as he wants, but he might not opt to stay there too long. Fade, he's in jail. This is where you don't want to be. He might be able to escape. He has that super as well. The payoff has been massive for ChazMax, but no kills just yet, as that poison's bound to be closing in very soon as well.
That's big, though. Mystic Esports has made that play almost every time. Drop the base, go on in, get somebody on either the left or the right lane. And this is the first time ChazMax avoid it, but they can't avoid the secondary push. Base gets dropped to the left side wins. Janet takes to the sky, damage is good on Fade, but he's not dead yet. Toast is getting hit, and so is the top side. The gas comes